If you listen to your broker, you're going to go broke. Look, I don't care if you're a new agent or you're an agent who's been in the business for a long time and you're still stuck doing things those crazy old school ways. Look, when you get into real estate, your broker, they teach you ethics, how to be ethical, right? They teach you the legalities of the real estate business. They teach you how to write contracts. And really, if you think about it, none of that's going to do you any good if you don't have prospects to begin with. Now, they've all got their training programs, their boot camps that you go to. And the problem is it's just feeding you the same stuff over and over again. What do they tell you? They tell you to go cold call, right? I don't think anybody who got their real estate license really studied up and got that with the intent of being a cold caller, a bothersome pest who drives people crazy, cold soliciting people all day long, 7 days a week on the phone. You could go get that job as a 14-year-old teenager. In fact, I actually did that job as a 15-year-old teenager. They teach you to door knock. Now, I don't know about you, but especially in today's world, it's just not safe. I'm not going to be banging on strangers' door. Not to mention, it's not high leverage whatsoever. And let me frame that a little differently. Anytime you're in front of a client or speaking to a prospective client, it is high leverage technically, but it's ultimately not high leverage because it's just not scalable. You see, you're going to run up against the limits of time. No matter how great you are, there's only so many people that you can call every day. There's only so many doors you can knock on every day. And quite frankly, there's much, much better ways of reaching these people. And again, when you're showing up at my door unannounced, you're not somebody that I'm really wanting to talk to. So you've got this huge barrier to break down right away. And I want you to think about the positioning that it creates for you as well. You're effectively a beggar. You're that guy or girl that the no soliciting sign out front of the neighborhood was put there for. Yet, because you're a real estate agent, you think it's okay to break that. You're really annoying people. You're not welcome to knock on their door. Now, you may say, hey, well, I've gotten a listing knocking on the door. I've gotten a couple listings making phone calls. That's great, but it's just not scalable. And if you are getting listings, it's probably the reason, I would guess, that you probably plateau at a certain number every week, month, every year. It's not scalable. And quite frankly, it's just not any fun. And look, in today's market, the success rate of real estate agents, it's incredibly low. It's somewhere around 24 to 25% of agents are making money at all. And out of that, there's roughly 10% that are really making a substantial good income where the job really feels rewarding. And you'll notice I use the word job because the way that most agents do this, it really isn't a business. You know, that's a term that's thrown around pretty darn loosely, my real estate business. When frankly, it's really a job. You're the worker. You're doing everything. You're banging on doors. You're cold calling. You're going on the appointments. It's miserable. And lots of people think agents quit purely because of the lack of income. Well, the fact is that in year one, statistically, it's somewhere around 80% of agents will quit the business. And then they say by year 2 or 3, 80% of that remaining original 20, well, they're out of the business by then as well, too. So it's not always money. A lot of the times it's exhaustion. It's killing yourself 7 days a week, effectively chasing down prospects and begging. And from my standpoint, it's all about flipping the switch. It's about getting sellers to chase you instead of you being this pain in the butt pest that's chasing them. And if you think about that positioning, you know, when you're the one chasing, you're often going up against many other agents, right? We call them listing appointments mistakenly, right? Most of the time it's interview appointments. And you're in this position where you show up at the door, your confidence level is it's a little bit reduced at best. At worst, it's a lot of anxiety because you're competing with other agents. They genuinely hear the same thing from everybody else, these unwanted sales, long-winded sales presentations where the spouse is running around, not paying attention. The kids are screaming in the background. It's a miserable thing. And they're just like, get to it. Let's get to the price and what you charge. Often you lose the listing because of that positioning. They'll just choose Susie down the street who got her real estate license the other day. They didn't want to offend her or her mother, right? Or they'll just have this race to the bottom on commissions, right? This guy does it for X%. Will you do it for this? And will you undercut it for that? And then they'll list with you. Well, when you flip the switch and you get sellers chasing you, it's an entirely different ballgame. You see, there's this old saying, price is only an issue in the absence of value. And value is the thing that most agents fail to deliver. And when you learn how to get sellers chasing you, well, the value is so great that not only are they closed before you ever meet them, but they'll pay you every penny that you deserve to be paid. There's no cutting commissions. There's no competing. There's no interview appointments. It's just getting listings. And look, I'll share a little story. Before I got into real estate, I had done every type of nose-to-nose, toes-to-toe selling you could possibly do. I sold newspapers door-to-door in downtown Atlanta. And if you know anything about Atlanta, let's just say I wasn't really the most welcome face down there. I had my life threatened several times, but for me, that just drove me, didn't scare me. I was always the number one guy. I was making great money. I was making more money in college, working 4 hours a day, banging on these doors, jumping out the back of a station wagon, than most people were making at their full-time job, most adults around me. So I stuck with it. It was great. It was fun. It was good sales training. I have sold cars. My very first month in the business, I was like the guy, number one guy in the industry, in the dealership, and just kicked butt ever since then. As a teenager, like I said, I was telemarketing, right? I didn't need a real estate license. I was 15 years old, telemarketing. I was selling timeshare appointments. I was setting up timeshare appointments. I didn't even know what a timeshare was at the time, but I was setting up the appointments. So the point is, I was really, really great at what I did. I was always number one at sales. It was kind of in my blood. Learned it from my father, who's been in sales all of his life, very successful. And I got very hooked at an early age. I got hooked on what's called direct response marketing. And I got hooked on this prior to ever getting into real estate. I had studied all of the greats, and I really knew how to market. And that's what I used to be successful at everything that I did. Because marketing, to me, it's not just a marketing piece. It's any conversation you have. Phone, in person, email, text with any prospect. That's marketing. And I knew how to speak the language. But when I jumped into real estate, for some reason, I told myself I was going to be coachable. This is a different industry. There's a lot of opportunity here. There's probably some things I can learn. I try and approach things sort of open-minded, right? I don't feel like I know everything, and I always feel like I get a little piece from somebody. I get more benefit, and I grow from that. Well, I got into real estate, and I applied some of my marketing skills in a cheap way, the way that the broker told me to. First, I sat down, and this was no marketing applied here. And the broker sat me down at an office. Great guy, but it was the typical instruction. He sat me down, he gave me a bunch of business cards. He said, here, send these out to your sphere of influence. Now, mind you, I was 22 years old at the time. My sphere of influence, they can't buy with cash and a cosigner. So obviously it did me no good. So I finally said, you know what? Let me follow this cold calling advice. Let me start calling expired listings and for sale by owners. Well, I was really good at selling. So I set up a number of really great, quick listing appointments. I probably set up 5 or 6 right out of the gate, just like that. And the very first appointment I went on, he sent me with the office guru, supposedly the guru. And I remember walking through the house with her on that, quote, appointment. And long and short of it is, it was the worst sales presentation I've ever seen. It didn't even resort to begging. It was like nothing. The guy had no vested interest in really doing business with us at all. We gave him no unique benefit for wanting to let us plant our sign in the yard and do our thing. And so we just left and nothing happened. I was totally deflated, but inspired at the same time. I decided from that moment on, I was going to do what I knew how to do. And that was direct response marketing. So I started sending out postcards, and I started doing the research on what people wanted. And I really crafted these messages that got people, they solved these prospects' problem before they ever called me. So long and short of this story is, they started calling me, and then more started calling me. And then they started calling me in droves. And it got me to where I was, I got to where I was working 80, 90 hours a week. And that's another miserable story, but I figured out how to fix that. And I'll talk about that in another video. But I figured out that getting people to call me sure made it a hell of a lot easier. It made real estate, quite frankly, a lot of fun. Imagine getting a phone call when people say, hey, Mike, just come over and list, we're ready to go. And then you pre-close them over the phone. That's what I did. So here's the elements. It's really 3 things you need to know in order to get people to start chasing you. Number 1, I call it find them. You've got to find the people in your marketplace that are predisposed to move, that are the highest probability sellers. And you've got to find these people in the smallest cluster area possible. And we do this by looking at things like turnover rate, competitive saturation, et cetera. There's a couple more things to the formula. But we'll find as many of these people in these, and I'll talk about let me use the word subdivisions. In my market here in Atlanta, subdivisions are what we would analyze. So let's start analyzing the subdivisions, and I would use my formula and I would figure out, okay, how many of these can I find in as close proximity to each other so I could find this cluster? And the logic behind it, if you think about it, is it's just creating visibility. It's just creating what I call the shark in a puddle effect, where people can't ignore you, where most agents go really wide and become the minnow in the ocean that nobody sees. You create this shark in a puddle effect. People are incredibly lazy in how they don't want to think. So if you can create this visibility coupled with a massively good offer here, you're almost can solidify your place in that marketplace as the dominant agent. Step two is, and by the way, if you want to learn how to do that, you can just go to Come List Me calls. Go to comelistmebook.com. You can grab a copy of my book. It's super, super cheap, and it outlines everything, the whole formula for you. Secondly, we got to get them to call you. So to get them to call you, you've got to match your message with what these people are looking for. You can't do the typical real estate agent. I'm number one. I've sold 1 million homes. I'm the neighborhood specialist. Frankly, people don't care about you. And I think that's the biggest hardest nut for agents to swallow, is they really don't care. They care about one thing, themselves. So you've got to discover what it is that these people actually want, and then we sell them on wants, and we give them what they need, the great agent, later. Step number 3 is you just got to close them right over the phone. And now that may seem like a tough task, and it's completely against the grain in what they teach you in real estate, right? You'll get the company listing presentation. Maybe you'll personalize your own presentation. You'll get something fancy from somewhere online or some program or something. And then you'll go in, this long-winded pitch. Again, nobody even wants it. You look like a sleazy salesperson. See, selling it's not selling people while you're there. It's getting them to trust you before you ever get there. And quite frankly, your marketing will do the closing for you. If your marketing doesn't close the deal up front, your marketing sucks. And I mean that with every bit of sincerity. Your marketing absolutely sucks. And when your marketing sucks, it's going to kill you, because that critical part allows you to do part 3, which is to have them totally closed over the phone. So frankly, when they call you, instead of you asking them when they'll be interviewing real estate agents and to let you be the last one or the first one, whatever your spiel is now, you're just reaffirming what they're calling you for. They're calling you about your special program or your special offer, right? Your special technique, whatever it is that we're promoting to them that solves their problem. And then we use what's called a future-pacing conversation. And it's just a little bit of NLP, neurolinguistic programming, super simple. Even if you don't know anything about it, you can learn it in about 5 seconds. And it just allows us to pre-frame the entire experience that a seller is expecting to have with you before you ever meet with them. So your marketing has done the job. You're just now locking them in. We're setting the expectation that this is a true listing appointment where you're going to come over, you're going to go through a very specific process, and within 30 minutes, the house is going to be listed, sign in the yard, key in the lockbox, boom, they can start looking for the new house that day. So you see, it's about leverage. And the highest leverage in any business, particularly in the real estate business, is marketing. So you've got to become a great marketer. And again, if you want to knock on doors, you want to cold call, go for it. Maybe you don't have the resources now, but I would challenge to say that there's never really a great time to get started. It's never going to feel like the perfect time. You've got to learn the marketing. And the quicker you do it, the quicker you're going to get to success, the less chance you're going to have of actual burnout in the business. If you want to just do it a quicker way, just figure out who it is in your marketplace that are the most likely to move, find as many of those people in the smallest clustered areas possible, decipher what they want, get them to call you, and then just use a simple future-pacing conversation to close these people right over the phone. Now, if you want to learn how to find those sellers in your marketplace who are the most likely to sell in those tight clusters, just watch this next video and I'll show you exactly how we do it.